I stared at my reflection in the restaurant's bathroom mirror, willing myself not to cry. My mascara was already starting to run, and I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. My own daughter's laughter still rang in my ears, mixed with her fiancé's snide remarks about my dating app profile. I'm Sophia, and at 55, I never expected to be starting over. But here I was, 6 months post-divorce, being mocked by my 27-year-old daughter and her perfect fiancé over dinner. Mom, seriously? Ariel had said, holding up her phone to show Van my Tinder profile. Your bio says you're young at heart. That's what old people say when they're in denial. Van's shoulders shook with laughter. And look at that profile picture. It's like a LinkedIn headshot. Who's gonna swipe right on that? I took a deep breath and pushed open the bathroom door, plastering on a smile as I returned to our table. The restaurant buzzed with happy families around us, making the tension at our table even more pronounced. I ordered you more wine, Mom, Ariel said, her tone dripping with pity. You seem like you need it. Actually, I'm good, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Tell me more about the wedding plans. Van launched into their elaborate vision, complete with a destination ceremony in Tuscany. Carrie's been amazing, he added, referring to my ex-husband. He's helping us source authentic Italian antiques for the reception from his shop. You know, real classic pieces, not that mass-produced stuff you see online. The dig wasn't subtle. Carrie's antique shop had been his pride and joy for 30 years, and apparently my interest in online marketplaces was beneath them all. Speaking of online, Ariel chimed in, Mom, please tell me you're not serious about starting an Etsy shop with your sewing projects. It's cute that you're trying to keep busy, but let's be realistic. My hands clenched under the table. The sewing machine that had gathered dust in my garage was more than just a hobby. It was the one thing that had kept me sane during the divorce. But trying to explain that to Ariel would be pointless. Actually, my friend Paula's voice cut through the tension as she approached our table. Sophia's work is incredible. You should see what she made for my daughter's wedding. I'd never been so grateful for an interruption. Paula pulled up a chair, her presence a shield against the condescension radiating from the other side of the table. Paula, Van nodded politely, though his expression suggested she was interrupting something important. We were just discussing our wedding plans. Oh, I heard, Paula smiled, but her eyes were sharp. You know, Sophia's handmade table runners would look stunning in a Tuscan villa. Ariel nearly choked on her wine. Mom's not making anything for our wedding. We're going for a sophisticated look. The word sophisticated hit like a slap. I watched my daughter, wondering when she'd become so dismissive of everything I was or could be. Well, I said, standing up, I should head home. Early morning tomorrow. I reached for my purse, but Van waved his hand. Don't worry about it, Sophia. I've got this. Consider it charity for the newly single. He winked. Paula's hand found my arm, squeezing gently. I could feel her willing me not to react. Thanks, but I can pay for my own dinner, I said, dropping cash on the table. Ariel, honey, I'll call you tomorrow. Outside, the cool evening air helped clear my head. Paula followed me to my car. Those two are something else, she muttered. You okay? I leaned against my car door, finally letting out a shaky breath. You know what's funny? I actually came tonight hoping to share some good news. I sold 3 of my custom quilts last week on Facebook Marketplace. Paula's face lit up. That's fantastic. Why didn't you tell them? And give them more ammunition? I shook my head. No, I'm done trying to prove myself to them. So, what are you going to do? I thought about the stack of orders piling up in my email, about the vintage fabrics I'd been collecting, about the designs swimming in my head at night. I'm going to prove myself to me, I said, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. and I'm going to do it without their approval or their help. Paula grinned. Now that sounds like a plan. Want to come over tomorrow? I've got some ideas about turning those Facebook sales into something bigger. As I drove home that night, I kept thinking about Van's comment about mass-produced online goods. He had no idea what I was capable of creating. None of them did. In my garage, I flipped on the light and uncovered my grandmother's old Singer sewing machine. My fingers traced its familiar curves, and for the first time that evening, I smiled. They thought I was just keeping busy, playing at having a purpose. They were about to learn how wrong they were. You need better lighting in here, Paula declared, marching into my garage 2 weeks after the disastrous dinner. She was carrying a professional ring light and a tripod. If we're going to make your pieces look Instagram-worthy, we need to step up your photo game. I looked up from the vintage silk I was carefully piecing together. Instagram? I thought we were sticking to Etsy and Facebook. Oh, honey. Paula set down her equipment and pulled up a stool. Welcome to 2024. Social media is where the real money is. Watch this. She pulled out her phone and showed me a video of a woman about my age demonstrating her handmade jewelry. The video had over 2 million views. That could be you, she said, but with your unique twist. These aren't just quilts and table runners. They're wearable art pieces made from vintage fabrics. And look at this kimono you're working on. I smoothed the silk under my fingers. It's not exactly traditional. That's exactly the point. Now come here, we're making your first video. For the next hour, Paula directed me like a Hollywood producer, while I demonstrated how I transform vintage kimonos into modern pieces. I felt awkward at first, but Paula's enthusiasm was contagious. Just pretend you're teaching Lena, she suggested, referring to my young neighbor who'd been dropping by to learn sewing. Be natural. By the end of the day, we had 3 videos ready to post. Paula helped me set up a business Instagram account, and we uploaded the first one. Now we wait, she said, but we didn't have to wait long. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The video had gone viral overnight, with comments pouring in from around the world. Did you see this? Lena burst through my garage door, waving her phone. You're trending, and people are asking where they can buy your pieces. I stared at my phone in disbelief. How did this happen? Because you're filling a niche nobody knew existed, Paula said, already typing on her laptop. Quick, we need to set up a proper website. These orders are going to overwhelm your Etsy shop. The next few weeks passed in a blur of fabric, filming, and fulfilling orders. I hired Lena part-time to help with social media and shipping. My garage transformed into a proper studio with professional lighting and organized workstations. Then came the call I'd been dreading. Mom? Ariel's voice was sharp. Why is Dad upset about your videos? I set down my scissors. What do you mean? He says you're deliberately trying to hurt his business. Van showed him your latest post about breathing new life into vintage pieces, and Dad thinks you're taking a dig at his antique shop. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I haven't mentioned Carrie or his shop once. I'm just doing my own thing. Well, his sales are down 30% this month, and some of his regular customers are asking if he carries any of your upcycled pieces. That's not my problem, I said, surprising myself with my firmness. Carrie's shop is his business, and this is mine. But Mom? No, Ariel. For 30 years, I supported Dad's business. I worked in that shop every weekend, arranged displays, handled customers. Now I'm doing something for myself, and I won't apologize for being successful at it. The line went quiet for a moment. Successful? Mom, it's just social media. It's not real. I glanced at my sales dashboard. The numbers in my bank account say otherwise. After hanging up, I threw myself into work. A luxury boutique in New York had requested a custom collection, and I was determined to prove that this wasn't just some fleeting internet fame. Sophia, Lena called from her desk. We just got an interesting message. A fashion blogger wants to feature your story. She says she loves how you're revolutionizing the way people think about vintage textiles. I was about to respond when Paula burst in, grinning from ear to ear. You're not going to believe this, she said, holding up her tablet. Remember that Antiques magazine Carrie always wanted to be featured in? They want to do a piece on you instead. They're calling you the Queen of Vintage Reinvention. I sat down hard on my work stool. Are you serious? Dead serious. And the best part? The photographer wants to shoot you right here, in your workshop, showing how you transform these pieces. I looked around at my transformed garage, at the beautiful fabrics waiting to become something new, at the wall of completed orders ready to ship, at the corner where I filmed my tutorials that now had millions of views. You know what? I said, picking up my scissors again. Let's do it. But first, I need to finish this piece for the New York collection. As I worked, I thought about Carrie's struggling shop, about Ariel's dismissal of my success, about Van's condescending remarks. But for the first time, their opinions didn't matter. I was building something that was entirely my own. My phone buzzed with another notification, another 1,000 followers, another dozen orders. I smiled and kept sewing. Success, I was learning, was the sweetest revenge of all. The magazine feature changed everything. My phone rang during a live Instagram session where I was demonstrating how to transform a 1950s wedding dress into a modern cocktail ensemble. I'm so sorry, I told my viewers, but I need to take this call. Lena will continue showing you the process. I stepped outside, recognizing Carrie's number on my screen. My hand shook slightly as I answered. What do you want, Carrie? That magazine spread, he said, his voice tight. You knew I'd been trying to get featured for years. Actually, they approached me, I replied, keeping my voice level. I didn't seek them out. Right, he scoffed. Just like you didn't seek out the Harristons? They've been buying antiques from me for 20 years, and now they're commissioning you to reimagine their grandmother's collection? I leaned against the garage wall. People want something different now, Carrie. Times change. Times change? He laughed bitterly. You've changed, Sophia. The woman I married would never have destroyed valuable antiques for social media fame. Before I could respond, I heard Ariel's voice in the background. Dad, is that Mom? Let me talk to her. There was a shuffling sound. Then my daughter's voice came through. Mom, this has to stop. Dad's business is suffering. His quarterly numbers are the worst they've been in decades. And that's my fault? Yes, your videos are making his whole business model look outdated. Van says, Oh, Van says? I cut her off. And what exactly does your expert fiancé say about my business? He says you're riding a trend that won't last, that once people realize you're destroying heritage pieces, it'll backfire. I was about to argue when Lena stuck her head out. Sophia, the Vogue reporter is here for the interview. Ariel went quiet. Vogue? I have to go, I said. I have a business to run. The interview went brilliantly, but I couldn't shake the conversation with Carrie and Ariel. Later that evening, as Paula and I reviewed the day's sales figures, I finally voiced my concerns. Am I wrong for doing this? Taking these old pieces and changing them? Paula set down her wine glass. Let me ask you something. That wedding dress you transformed today, what would have happened to it otherwise? It would have stayed in someone's attic, probably. It was yellowed, had moth holes. Exactly. You're not destroying heritage. You're preserving it in a new way. And clearly, people love it. My phone buzzed with a text from Raquel, Van's sister. Just saw your Vogue interview preview. We need to talk. Coffee tomorrow? I showed Paula the message. What do you think that's about? Only one way to find out. The next morning, I met Raquel at our local coffee shop. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her cup. Van doesn't know I'm meeting you, she started, but I thought you should know. Things aren't good between him and Ariel. I waited, sipping my latte. Your success, it's causing problems. Van's been obsessed with proving you're going to fail. He's spending hours researching vintage textile laws, trying to find something to use against you. Why? Raquel sighed. Because you're making him look foolish. Remember when he mocked your online business idea? Now you're in vogue, and his fiance's mother is more successful than he is. That's ridiculous. It's male ego. Raquel shrugged. But here's the thing. Ariel's starting to see it too. Yesterday, she caught him writing negative reviews about your work under fake accounts. My hands tightened around my cup. He what? She confronted him about it. They had a huge fight. Ariel said something about finally understanding why you left her father. I sat back, processing this. Are they still together? Barely. The wedding's been postponed. I thought you should know because... She hesitated. Well, Ariel might need you soon. Back at the studio, I threw myself into work, trying not to think about my daughter's crumbling relationship. A notification popped up on my phone. Carrie's Antiques had just posted a lengthy Facebook rant about the destruction of heritage by trend-chasing influencers. Should we respond? Lena asked, showing me the growing comments section. I shook my head, picking up a beautiful but damaged vintage kimono. No, we'll let our work speak for itself. As I began carefully deconstructing the kimono, my phone lit up with another text from Raquel. It's over. Ariel caught Van trying to report your business for fraud. She threw her ring at him and left. I set down my scissors, my heart heavy. Success was sweet, but watching it impact my daughter's life wasn't part of the plan. Before I could reply, another message came through, this time from Ariel. Mom, can we talk? I think I messed up. The doorbell rang at 11:30 p.m. I opened it to find Ariel standing there, mascara streaked down her face, clutching an overnight bag. What I didn't expect was to see Van hovering behind her on my porch. I know it's late, Ariel sniffled. We both need a place to stay. Dad's not being helpful. I stood in the doorway, looking between them. Both of you? Please, Mom, Ariel whispered. Just for tonight. We can't afford a hotel right now. The irony of Van needing my charity wasn't lost on me, but I stepped aside. The guest room and the office couch are both available. You can figure out who sleeps where. Van cleared his throat. Sophia, not tonight, I cut him off. Whatever you want to say can wait until morning. I led them inside, pointing out the fresh towels and spare toiletries. Neither spoke as they awkwardly navigated around each other in the hallway. Finally, Ariel disappeared into the guest room and Van slunk off to the office. Sleep didn't come easily. At 3 a.m., I heard movement in the kitchen and found Ariel sitting at the counter, staring at a cup of tea. Want to talk about it? I asked, sliding onto the stool beside her. Dad's furious, she said. He says I'm betraying him by even considering postponing the wedding. And Van? She twisted her hands together. I found more than just fake reviews, Mom. He's been messaging your competitors, trying to get them to file complaints against you. Why? Because he's scared, she said quietly. He always thought he'd be the successful one, that I'd be this trophy wife helping run Dad's antique business. Then you started doing so well, and suddenly his whole plan seemed small. I reached for her hand. That's not a good reason to try to destroy someone's business. I know, that's why I left. But then Dad said I couldn't stay with him unless I fixed things with Van and... She broke down crying. I don't know what to do, Mom. Everything's falling apart. Get some sleep, I said, squeezing her hand. Things will look clearer in the morning. But morning brought its own chaos. I was in my garage studio filming a tutorial when Van wandered in, looking lost. This is impressive. he said, running his hand along a workbench. I had no idea you had all this going on out here. You never asked, I replied, turning off my camera. You were too busy assuming I was just playing around. He had the grace to look ashamed. About that, and the reviews, and everything else. Save it, I said. I'm not the one you need to apologize to. Actually, you are, he insisted. I was wrong, and threatened, and stupid. Watching you build this empire while Carrie's business struggled, it scared me. I thought if you could do this at 55, what would stop Ariel from realizing she could do more than just support my career? That's exactly what should have excited you about marrying my daughter, I said, picking up a piece of silk. Her potential, her dreams. Instead, you tried to clip her wings to match your expectations. The door opened and Ariel walked in, freezing when she saw us. Oh, sorry, I didn't. No, stay, I said. You should see where all that cute hobby money comes from. Ariel walked slowly around the studio, taking in the professional setup, the shipping station, the wall of pending orders. Her fingers traced the edge of a half-finished dress. This is beautiful, she whispered. How did I not see it before? Because you weren't looking, I said simply. You were too busy seeing me the way Van and your father wanted you to see me, as someone who needed to be humored and pitied. Van stepped forward. Ariel, don't, she cut him off. I heard what you said to Mom about being scared I'd realize my potential. Well, guess what? I already have. She turned to me, her eyes bright. Mom, would you teach me? Not just the sewing, but all of it. The business, the marketing, everything? Before I could answer, Van spoke up. I could help too. I mean, I know I've been awful, but I do know about business analytics and… Stop. I held up my hand. Both of you. This isn't about quick fixes or instant forgiveness. If you're staying here, there need to be ground rules. They both nodded, looking like chastened children. First, you're in separate rooms until you figure out what you really want. Second, if you want to learn the business, you start at the bottom, both of you. And third, I picked up my scissors. No more sabotage, no more games, no more trying to please Carrie at my expense. Deal? Ariel wiped her eyes. Deal. Van nodded solemnly. Deal. Good, I said, turning back to my work. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a video to finish. Lena can show you where we keep the cleaning supplies. The storage room needs organizing. As they shuffled out, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. It's about showing others exactly what they overlooked. You're holding it wrong, Ariel said, reaching over to adjust Van's grip on the fabric scissors. Mom showed us yesterday. You need to keep the blades parallel to the table. 2 weeks had passed since they'd moved in, and my garage studio had become an unexpected classroom. Van looked up from the vintage tablecloth he was carefully cutting, his face scrunched in concentration. I still can't believe each piece needs to be cut this precisely, he muttered. That's why Mom's pieces sell for what they do, Ariel replied, surprising me with her defensive tone. It's not just about changing old into new. It's about doing it right. I pretended to be absorbed in my sewing, hiding my smile as I listened to them. The transformation in both of them had been remarkable. Ariel had thrown herself into learning every aspect of the business, while Van had swallowed his pride and started from scratch, learning the basics of textile work. Sophia? Lena burst into the studio, tablet in hand. That fashion blogger who featured us last month? Her video just hit 1 million views, and our website's crashing from all the traffic. Van jumped up. I can help with that. My friend runs a web hosting company. Sit, I said firmly. Finish your cutting first. Remember what I said about starting at the bottom? He sighed and returned to his work, but I caught the small smile he tried to hide. For someone who'd spent weeks trying to sabotage my business, he was becoming surprisingly invested in its success. Mom, Ariel called from her workstation, can you check this stitching? I think I finally got it right. I walked over to examine her work, a delicate repair on a 1960s cocktail dress. Her stitches were nearly invisible, matching the original seam line perfectly. This is excellent, I said, genuine pride in my voice. You're a natural. Like mother, like daughter, Paula announced, walking in with coffee for everyone. Though I never thought I'd see the day when little Miss It's Just a Hobby would be asking for extra sewing lessons. Ariel blushed. I was wrong, okay? I admit it. It's amazing. The way you take these pieces that people have forgotten and make them beautiful again. Speaking of forgotten pieces, Van interrupted, you should see what just came in. He pulled out his phone, showing us an online auction listing. It's an estate sale from that old mansion on Oak Street. They've got a whole collection of vintage designer pieces from the 1940s just sitting in their attic. I raised an eyebrow. And how did you find this? I might have set up alerts for vintage textile auctions in the area, he admitted. I thought maybe we could expand the business, you know? Create a sourcing department? We? I asked pointedly. Van's face fell. Sorry, I didn't mean to overstep. I just got excited about the possibility. Ariel put down her work and walked over to him. No, it's a good idea. Mom, he's right. We could do something with this. Not just waiting for pieces to come to us, but actively finding them. I watched them standing together, their earlier awkwardness replaced by shared enthusiasm. You two seem to work well together when you're not trying to tear each other down. They exchanged a glance, and I saw something of their old connection spark between them. Sophia, Van said seriously, I know I haven't earned back your trust yet, but I want to. Not just for Ariel, but because I genuinely respect what you've built here, what you've taught us both. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Carrie. Your daughter won't answer my calls, he said without preamble. Tell her to come home and stop this nonsense. I put the phone on speaker. She can hear you herself. Dad, Ariel said firmly, I'm not coming home. I'm learning something valuable here, something real. Real? Carrie scoffed. You're helping her destroy antiques. And you, Van, I thought you understood the value of tradition. Van straightened up. I understand the value of growth, sir, and your daughter's happiness is worth more than any antique. The line went quiet for a moment. So, that's it? You're all against me now? No, Dad, Ariel said softly. We're just finally for ourselves. After Carrie hung up, the studio remained silent. Ariel wiped her eyes and returned to her sewing. Van hesitated, then walked over and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You okay? He asked. She nodded, not looking up. Yeah, for the first time in a long time, I actually am. I watched them, remembering my own journey from Carrie's shadow to finding my voice. That estate sale, I said finally. When is it? Van's face lit up. This weekend. Why? Because you're right. We could use a sourcing department, and you two just volunteered to run it. The smile they shared was worth every moment of drama that had led us here. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's watching others learn from your journey and find their own path to growth. Mom, you need to see this, Ariel called from her laptop. 1 month had passed since the estate sale, which had been a gold mine for our business. Dad's posted something on Facebook. I walked over, still holding a piece of vintage lace. The post was a long announcement about Carrie's antiques evolving with the times. There were photos of his shop being renovated, with a new section dedicated to what he called heritage-inspired modern pieces. He's copying you, Van said, looking over our shoulders. But not very well. Look at these prices. He's trying to compete with mass-produced items while claiming they're artisanal. Should we be worried? Ariel asked. I shook my head. No, but I think it's time we had a family meeting. What do you mean? Call your father. Tell him to meet us for dinner tonight. All of us. Ariel's eyes widened. Are you sure? Trust me, I said, returning to my work. It's time to clear the air. That evening, we sat at a quiet table in the back of Mario's restaurant. Carrie arrived last, his face tight with tension. Well, he said, sitting down, this is quite the family reunion. Carrie, I started, we need to talk about what you're doing with the shop. He bristled. I don't need business advice from… Dad, stop. Ariel cut in. Just listen, please. I took a deep breath. You're hurting your own reputation. Those mass-produced pieces you're selling, they're not what your customers come to you for. Your strength has always been authenticity. Rich words from someone who cuts up antiques, he snapped. Mom doesn't destroy them. Van spoke up, surprising everyone. She preserves their essence while making them relevant again. There's a difference. Carrie stared at his almost son-in-law. You're defending her now? After everything you said about her business? I was wrong, Van said simply. Working with Sophia these past weeks has taught me more about real value than all my business courses combined. What if we collaborated? Ariel suggested suddenly. Dad, your expertise in identifying valuable pieces combined with Mom's vision for giving them new life. It could be amazing. Carrie laughed bitterly. Collaborate with the woman who left me? Who's been stealing my customers? I didn't steal anyone, I said firmly. They chose something different. But Ariel's right. We could work together instead of against each other. How exactly would that work? Carrie asked, his tone still skeptical, but slightly softer. Your shop could be our showcase space, Van suggested. Imagine, one section for traditional antiques, another for Sophia's transformations. You could offer customers both options. And we could document the whole process, Ariel added excitedly. Show people how we honor these pieces' history while giving them a future. Dad, your knowledge is invaluable. We could feature you in videos explaining the piece's origins. I watched Carrie's face as our children painted this picture of collaboration. Something shifted in his expression. You really respect these old pieces? He asked me quietly. Of course I do. Why do you think I spend hours studying their original construction before changing anything? Here, look at this. I pulled out my phone and showed him a video of my latest project. A 1920s wedding dress I'd transformed into 3 modern pieces while preserving all its original beadwork. The craftsmanship, he murmured, leaning closer. You kept all the hand-stitched details? Every single one, I confirmed. Carrie, I learned about quality from you. Remember all those weekends I spent in the shop? I was paying attention. He sat back, running a hand through his gray hair. And you two? He looked at Ariel and Van. You're serious about this? Working together? They exchanged a glance, their hands finding each other under the table. We are, Ariel said. Dad, these past weeks working with Mom, I've found something I'm passionate about. And Van has too. We're better together, all of us. Even if it means postponing that fancy Italian wedding? Carrie asked. Van squeezed Ariel's hand. We're thinking something smaller now, maybe in Mom's studio, surrounded by the pieces that brought us back together. I felt tears threatening, but held them back. Carrie, what do you say? He was quiet for a long moment, studying each of our faces. Finally, he pulled out his phone and pulled up his shop's website. This new section I created, he said slowly. It's not working, but maybe we could clear it out, make space for something authentic instead. Partners? I asked, extending my hand across the table. He took it, his grip firm and familiar. Partners? But I have one condition. What's that? You have to let me help choose which pieces to transform. Some things are too precious to change. Deal, I smiled. And you have to admit that sometimes change is exactly what makes something precious again. He looked at Ariel and Van, then back at me. Yeah, he said softly. I'm starting to see that. And this, Carrie said to the camera, holding up an intricately beaded flapper dress, is a genuine 1920s piece. Notice the hand-sewn crystals, each one still perfectly intact after 100 years. I stood beside him in his shop, now our shop, as Lena recorded our first joint video. The space had been transformed, with my creations displayed alongside Carrie's traditional antiques. The contrast worked beautifully. Now, I stepped forward, watch how we honor this craftsmanship while giving it new life. The bell above the door chimed, and Ariel rushed in, looking flustered. Sorry, I'm late. Traffic was terrible. Did I miss the filming? Perfect timing, Van called from behind the camera. We're just getting to the good part. Carrie handed me the dress with a reverence I'd never seen before. Show them what you can do. As I began explaining my process, a group of customers gathered to watch. Among them was Mrs. Harrison, one of Carrie's longtime clients, who'd initially been skeptical of our collaboration. I have to admit, she said, I was worried you were going to ruin these beautiful pieces. But what you're doing, it's like watching history breathe again. That's exactly what we're aiming for. Ariel chimed in, her eyes shining. Hey, Mom, should we show them the wedding dress project? My hand stilled on the flapper dress. Are you sure? She nodded, and Van quickly switched camera memory cards. The video we'd been working on for weeks began playing on the shop's display screen. Ariel in my transformed wedding dress, a perfect blend of vintage and modern. Is that my old dress? Carrie asked, his voice thick. The one I was supposed to wear, Ariel confirmed. Mom helped me redesign it. We kept all the important parts but made it more me. The shop fell silent as everyone watched the video. The dress had been Carrie's mother's, then mine, and was meant to be Ariel's. Instead of the traditional ball gown, we'd created an elegant jumpsuit with a removable overlay made from the original lace. It's perfect, Mrs. Harrison whispered. Simply perfect. Carrie cleared his throat. When are you planning to wear it? Van stepped out from behind the camera and took Ariel's hand. We were thinking next month, small ceremony right here in the shop, if that's okay with both of you. I looked at Carrie, seeing the same surprise on his face that I felt. Our daughter and her fiancé, wanting to get married surrounded by the very things that had once driven them apart? We'd be honored, Carrie said, his voice gruff with emotion. But first, I added, trying to lighten the moment, we need to finish this video. Carrie, tell them about the history of these beads. As Carrie launched into his expertise, I watched Ariel and Van slip behind the counter, their heads bent together over a display of vintage rings. They'd grown so much in the past months, both individually and together. Sophia, Paula called from the door, carrying a large package. You need to see this. She set the box on the counter and pulled out a magazine. Not just any magazine, but the most prestigious antiques quarterly in the country. On the cover was a photo of Carrie and me in the shop, surrounded by both traditional and transformed pieces. The Future of Antiques, Paula read the headline. How a divorced couple revolutionized the vintage market. They're calling you trendsetters. Carrie picked up the magazine, his hands shaking slightly. They quoted me. They actually quoted me about the importance of evolution in the antiques business. Of course they did, I said. You're the expert. I just help people see these pieces in a new way. Mom, Dad, Ariel called. Look what we found. She held up a delicate Art Deco ring. It was in that estate lot we bought last week. Van thinks, well, we think it would be perfect for a wedding band. It needs some restoration. Van added quickly, looking at Carrie. Sir, would you help me with that? Carrie's face softened. I think I can manage that. Sophia, would you mind if I handled this one traditionally? No transformations needed? I smiled. Some things are perfect just as they are. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of filming, customers, and family. As we closed up shop, Carrie lingered behind. I never thought I'd say this, he said, watching as Van helped Ariel into her coat. But thank you for showing me that change doesn't mean losing what matters. Thank you for being willing to learn, I replied. It means everything to them, to all of us. He nodded, then picked up the magazine. Should we frame this? Definitely. Right next to the wedding photos we're going to take next month. As we locked up, I couldn't help but smile at the sign in the window. Carrie's Antiques and Sophia's Transformations, where history meets tomorrow. It wasn't the revenge I'd originally planned, but it was something far better. It was redemption for all of us. Ready? Paula asked, adjusting my jacket one last time. I smoothed down the vintage silk blouse I'd transformed into a modern piece for today's special occasion. Through the shop's backroom door, I could hear the quiet murmur of gathered guests. As ready as I'll ever be to walk my daughter down the aisle alongside my ex-husband. I smiled. The shop had been transformed. Vintage mirrors reflected soft lighting from antique chandeliers, and my reworked textiles draped elegantly between Carrie's carefully curated pieces. Each display told a story of old and new coming together. Mom? Ariel appeared in the doorway, breathtaking in her redesigned wedding dress. Dad's freaking out about the ring. I found Carrie in his office, frantically polishing the restored Art Deco band. It needs to be perfect, he muttered. Carrie, I touched his shoulder. It is perfect, just like this whole day. He looked up, his eyes misty. Remember when she used to play dress-up in here? Running around in those oversized vintage hats? And now she's running the social media for both our businesses, I smiled. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. A knock at the door interrupted us. Van stood there, looking nervous but determined in his suit, accented with a vest I'd made from a vintage smoking jacket. Everything's ready, he said, and I wanted to thank you both for giving me a second chance, for teaching me what really matters. Carrie stood, carefully placing the ring in Van's palm. Just remember what we learned. Sometimes the most valuable things are the ones that seem broken at first. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. Ariel and Van exchanged vows surrounded by the pieces that had brought them back together. When they kissed, the small crowd of family, friends, and loyal customers erupted in applause. During the reception, I found myself standing next to the display case where it all began, the first piece I'd ever transformed, now paired with Carrie's detailed history of its origins. Quite a journey from that first dinner where they mocked your dating profile, Paula said, joining me with 2 glasses of champagne. Speaking of profiles, Lena called out, rushing over with her phone. You need to see this. She pulled up a major business magazine's website. The headline read, From Divorce to Success, How One Family Built a Multi-million-dollar Vintage Empire. Multi-million? Carrie appeared behind us, reading over my shoulder. They got that right? Check your sales reports, Van said, grinning. Our combined online and in-store revenue passed that mark last week. The collaboration is working better than we ever imagined. Ariel wrapped her arms around both Carrie and me. And to think, it all started because you two couldn't agree on how to handle old things. No, I corrected her. It started because we finally learned how to make old things work in new ways, including ourselves. The party continued around us, but I stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The shop's new sign glowed softly in the evening light. A gentle hand touched my elbow. Carrie. Penny for your thoughts? He asked. Just thinking about revenge, I admitted, how I wanted it so badly at first. And now? Now I realize the best revenge wasn't getting even. It was getting better. Not just the business, but all of us. He nodded thoughtfully. You know, I was so afraid of change that I almost lost everything trying to prevent it. You showed me there's another way. We showed each other, I corrected. Look at them. Through the window, we could see Ariel teaching some guests about fabric restoration, while Van demonstrated their new inventory tracking system. They moved around each other with practiced ease. Their earlier conflicts transformed into complementary strengths. They're going to take this place further than we ever could, Carrie said proudly. Together, I agreed. Just like we're doing now, but differently. The door opened and Paula stuck her head out. Sorry to interrupt, but your daughter's about to throw her bouquet, which, may I remind you, Sophia masterfully crafted from vintage silk flowers. Back inside, I watched as Ariel prepared to throw her bouquet. The arrangement was a perfect blend of preserved vintage flowers and newly crafted ones, symbolizing everything we'd built together. Mom, she called. Dad, get in here for this. As we joined the crowd, I caught Van's eye. He winked and whispered something to Ariel, who suddenly turned and handed the bouquet directly to Lena. Because, Ariel announced, without you believing in Mom's vision from the start, none of this would have happened. Lena hugged the bouquet, tears in her eyes. I just saw potential and ran with it. That's what we all did, I said, looking around at my unlikely family. We saw potential in each other, in old things, in new beginnings. The evening wound down, but the shop remained alive with possibility. Tomorrow, we'd be back to transforming vintage pieces and preserving ancient ones, each of us adding our own touch to a legacy that was no longer about the past or the future, but about the beautiful space where both could exist together.